Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Living Our Faith with Archbishop Jerome Listecki. I'm Jeff Jackson. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. Good morning, Archbishop.
Good morning, Jeff. Thank you so much. We're now, it's into the summer, which is great.
And we now have another successful fortnight for freedom in the books, don't we?
It's really important. The success really comes in keeping the issue in front of everyone. And by that issue, I mean understanding that we always have to maintain and witness our freedom. And if we don't, then it will slowly erode. From my perspective, obviously, and it's obviously prejudicial, but, so I admit it, but having studied the Constitution and unfortunately having been a lawyer, so
right.
We understand that those freedoms need to be protected and need to be guarded because they can be infringed upon.
Well, our guest this morning is someone that you know well. He is
great man,
Reiman, founder
yes.
of Reiman Publications, really a legend in the publishing industry.
Oh, Roy, how about that? A legend. You're a legend.
Hardly.
No, I think it's the truth. And you are absolutely right, Jeff. I think, it'd be interesting for our audience to hear a little bit of Roy's development in terms of his faith life. And I know some great story. I've been present to him, so I love the stories. But the story literally of his family from Iowa is basically the farm boy, basically growing up, and then all of a sudden his own education. Pretty good athlete himself in terms of sports. And the influence that he had especially in college with a particular priest that was kind of at the Newman Center. So before I tell your story for you and take the words out of your right, Roy, welcome to the show, and please start off by telling us a little bit about the faith life, your Catholic upbringing, and then all of a sudden your relationship in terms of those college years.
Thank you. Yes, I did grow up in a farm in western Iowa, and it was sort of during that change when the priests were still, some were still up at the pulpit, and they were starting to move down to the communion rail and beyond. And so when I went to Iowa State, I met Father Supple, and it was he had a great effect on my life. He made a lot of points with humor. Instead of, he wasn't just at the communion rail. He was almost, when he told stories or jokes, he pretty much acted them out. And so that was a real change for me because our priest at home, God rest his soul, was pretty much, his name was Father Sturm, and we called him Father Storm. And I think sometimes he used language and so forth that was a little bit above the level of the farm audience there and so forth. And here, Father Supple was just plain conversational, and you could relate to him.
Yeah, it was the first time you either introduced him or met him. You didn't even know he was a priest, wasn't that?
No, I didn't. I came down to campus as a preschool visit, and I was in some little recreation room. There may have been a dozen students there or less, and all of a sudden, this guy who I thought was well beyond middle age, when you're young, everybody beyond 30 is middle age. And, now I look back the other way. But the guy with a baggy shirt and so forth walked in and said to no one in particular, "You know what? I haven't heard the Tiger Rag in a long time." And he plugged it in his jukebox. And he went out in the middle room and he started Charleston. I couldn't believe. I mean, he could do the swinging leg and all this. And halfway through, he looked at me because he always knew everybody. He said, "Wait a minute, who are you?" "I'm Father Supple." And that's how I met him. Actually, he said, "Who the hell are you?" And I thought, I thought, the whole sky was going to open. This priest said, "Hell," but that was the start of a great relationship. And every time Bobby, my wife, and I went out to visit. And now when we go back to campus, he's passed away, and we really miss him.
Oh, yeah. It's those individuals who kind of come into our life. Talk in terms of angels. I think they truly are. they kind of lead us, and they help us, give us a sense of confidence.
Absolutely.
Well, when Jeff said you're basically a legend, you really kind of in a real sense
and I said he needs higher aspirations.
You really are. You really are in one sense. But you didn't start off being a legend. How did you? How did you get to the point of creatively coming up with the ideas? Now, the audience will have to excuse me because I've been involved from day one with both Roy and Bobby and know a lot of the stories. So when I'm teasing Roy and pulling them out, it's because I find those stories just fascinating and interesting. You started off basically. You didn't start off kind of thinking I'm going to be a publisher of great magazines. How did you start off? What did you start off in studying in terms of that journalism? Wasn't it?
Is this a 3-hour program?
This is a 3-hour program.
Because it's going to be difficult giving you 2 sips of a 3-beer story here. I was very fortunate. I went to a very small school. There were only 63 students in my high school and 11 in my class. I graduated in the top 10, I'm pretty sure. But anyway, I never really did check. But I was very fortunate to have an English teacher. With a school that small, class that small, you don't have a journalism teacher. But Mrs. Cleaver, I wouldn't be here, wouldn't be anywhere without, it's just another indication of how important teachers are to people's lives. Because without Mrs. Cleaver, I would never have gotten this business. She found I had some talent for writing when I was a freshman, and she was bound and determined that I was going to be her first college journalism graduate. And so she was a pain in the patoot, really, for about 4 years. But she did her job. And I went to Iowa State, and I took agricultural journalism and went into the Army and all the regular things. And I, after several jobs, I ended up here in Milwaukee, and it was a very entrepreneurial company where we kept coming up with magazines for other companies, we had Ford Motor Company and so forth. And every quarter they would have, they called it a $1 million idea meeting is actually what they called it. You were to come in with an idea that would make the company $1 million, which was in jest, but that was, and I'd never been challenged like that before. I didn't even know I was entrepreneurial. I grew up in Iowa, and I hope I can say this. I used to tell people that the first time I heard the word entrepreneur, I thought they said in the manure. But anyway, but there may be a connection there. But anyway, I enjoyed that challenge, and one day I came up with an idea that didn't fit the company, and because it wasn't agricultural, and our lives changed the night I came home and said to Bobby, I'm going to think I'm going to quit my job and go on my own. And she said, let's talk about it. And the kids go to bed, and we talked till 2 a.m. Now, mind you, we had 4 kids, and she's pregnant with the 5th. And after about 2 o'clock in the morning, I was either a great salesman or she got tired and said, okay, let's go for it. And I quit the job next day and went to the basement of our home. Our basement was just a concrete wall, I just had a typewriter on a TV tray and typed up, started this magazine that I had, this vision. It was we were going to make us millionaires.
Sure.
And, life is not always like a dream. I hadn't thought through one aspect of it, testing, and we had $6,800 saved up to start that magazine, and we ended up losing 10. And so I've always given Bobby credit because she never, when I use this sometimes when I'm speaking, and they'll, usually the first question later is, weren't you scared? With 4 kids. And so, and I always say, no, I grew up on a farm, because if you grew up on a farm, there's no job below you. You've already done all those. Right. And Bobby and I knew I'd feed those kids, whether I had to work at a tannery, a gas station, not that those are bad jobs. I would have done, and she knew that. And to kind of wrap up this thing, about a year later, I had job offers, but, I was an ex-Iowa German Catholic farm kid, and I'd been bucked off a horse. I want one more try here. Yeah. And I came up with another idea, and this time it obviously hit. Yeah. And quickly there, I was at a meeting in Chicago, and I learned that the two largest farm magazines were going to cease their women's section. They were going to take all the recipes out, all the human interest thing, the family management thing. And when I heard that, all I could think was my mother, because mom read farm magazines more than Dad did. I mean, she was sort of the secretary. She would open up the magazines and set them out for articles that she knew that he wanted to read. And they were going to take all that away from women. So I was driving my Volkswagen Beetle back from Chicago, which I still drive a Bug today. I drove over here with it today. And I'm thinking, wow, what if I started a magazine just for farm women? And that was about by Kenosha. And then by the time I got to Racine, I said, wait a minute, because I'd asked, why are they dropping the women's section? Well, they couldn't sell enough advertising to support it anymore. Women's Day and all these women's magazines were coming to the fore, and farm numbers were declining. And so by the time I got to Racine, I said, wait a minute, if they can't sell enough advertising to support a section of the magazine, then how the dickens am I going to support a whole magazine? And so I finally got home about midnight, and I parked in the garage, and a thought hit me that still publishers don't think of today. Now, the two of you, you're probably reading a book right now, right?
Right. Okay,
when you bought that book, you paid its whole price. You didn't have somebody picking up 60% of the cost, which is advertising, 60-40, and you paid the 40% balance. You either paid the whole price or you didn't get the book. And I'm thinking in the garage, why can't that be true with magazines? If I have a magazine that fills a need that isn't available elsewhere, maybe I can make it without ads. And so we took, once again, Bobby went along with it. Second mortgage on the house, and we launched Farm and Wife News. I mean, we became Country Woman, but that was the start. And,
wow.
Yeah.
That and that alone, to think of trying to do a magazine without advertising, just purely on subscription, that's phenomenal. I'll bet people didn't believe you when you said you're going to do that.
I think that's probably true, but on the other hand, I think that when you're an underdog, people support you, and I often thought that we got a lot of support because I felt all these subscribers felt they were going to help us prove that it could be done. And obviously it did, from that, ended up with one to another, and that's too long a story.
But in terms of talking about it, your partner in this venture obviously is Bobby.
Oh yeah.
And as much as I love Roy, I love Bobby equally, even more.
Yeah.
She's you're darn right, she's cute. Type of thing. Just quickly, how did the two of you meet? How did the two of you come together?
I was working at a magazine company in Topeka, Kansas. One of my second job after the Army, and this redhead walked in one day. My boss was hiring a new secretary, and he brought 3 in to screen. And I said, boy, I sure hope he hires that redhead. and that's how we met. And I think you know this story, so that's what you're trying to get me to tell. Okay. See, there was she ended up being hired, and she was the boss as the executive editor's secretary, and there was a rule in the company: there's no inter-office dating, whatever. And so we thought we were being pretty discreet. We were on the sneak. We were dating, and one day the boss asked me to go out to coffee, and I thought, wow, another raise, another promotion. And it wasn't that at all. It turned out that he'd discovered we were having this relationship, and I thought it was history, because he over coffee the first 5 minutes everything was in past tense. You knew what the rules were. You should have known better if you thought you had a future in this company, and so forth. And I said, well, I'm history, because I was doing a terrible job of defending myself because I was just guilty of sin.
Sure.
But anyway,
sure.
And finally, after all that, he took a sip of coffee, and I thought, here it comes. And then he said, having said all that, I think you're good for each other.
Wow!
What a guy! I mean, it emphasized again about keeping things not only discreet but private and so forth. And
he was right. You are good for one another in terms of support. We've
been married 52 years now, and I'm really starting to like her.
We're talking with Roy Reiman, noted author and publisher, and we will continue in a few minutes. You're listening to Living Our Faith with Archbishop Jerome Listecki on Relevant Radio. We'll be right back.
His Excellency, Archbishop Jerome Listecki, our shepherd in the Archdiocese of Milwaukee. Who do you say that I am? The living gospel, which is proclaimed to us, takes a huge finger and points it out to every one of us. That question, which was posed to Peter, was posed in the very depth of our beings to each one of us. Jesus asks that question, who do you say that I am? The answer to that question transforms lives. The answer to that question makes individuals sacrifice beyond the wildest imagining. The answer to that question has built the great Archdiocese of Milwaukee.
This message is brought to you by Relevant Radio with our new station for Southeast Wisconsin, WSJP, AM 1640.
Welcome back, everyone, to Living Our Faith with Archbishop Jerome Listecki. We're talking this morning with Roy Reiman, well-known author and publisher from right here in the Milwaukee area.
What an interesting guy, right, Jeff?
Fascinating.
Absolutely.
Fascinating
and,
story.
In terms of Roy, in terms of those magazines, you started off with kind of filling a niche, which was that country woman, and kind of doing it. But then you followed through with just typical you, one idea after the other. You know, those. So tell us some about some of those magazines that you started.
Well, they weren't so much my ideas as I think I'm a pretty good listener to an audience, and readers will always tell you what they're really interested in. Many publishers make the mistake, and hey, who am I to judge? But they sort of dictate what they get a podium and preach to the readers. We've kind of always let the readers tell the story. You know, they're reader written. But anyway, after we started this Country Woman magazine, I kept getting letters from these women saying, my husband likes this magazine. And I'm thinking, this big rugged macho farmer wants to read this women's magazine, you know. So there must be something. Well, why don't we start one just for him? So we started Farm and Ranch Living, and that was a quick success. And then I read in Milwaukee Journal one Sunday that there was some survey done here in Wisconsin, and that over 50% of the people in Wisconsin who live in a city, given the choice, would prefer to live in a rural area or a small town.
Wow.
And I thought, why not vicariously take them there? And that's when we started Country Magazine. And the tagline below it was, for those who live in or long for the country. And that was our first one, hit 1 million subscribers. Again, all this without advertising. In fact, that one eventually hit 3 million. It was a huge hit. And then people kept saying, please go monthly, because all these are every other month. And when you're without advertising, if you double the frequency, you're going to have to double the price. And I was afraid I'd kill the gold goose. So I came out with Country Extra on the in-between months. So you, in effect, could have 2 different kinds of subscriptions to one magazine. And that went well. And then we kept hearing about people just seemed to, you know, with the aging America, more seniors, they like the nostalgic stories. And I said to Bobby, we were flying someplace that I think we're going to start a nostalgia magazine. And she said, well, what do you think you'll call it? And I said, I'm thinking about calling it Memories. And she quickly said, I don't think that's such a good name. I said, why? She said, because you can have bad memories as well as good memories.
Sure.
And I said, well, then what would you call it? I wish she'd made it seem a little more difficult, because about in 10 seconds she said, Reminisce. I said, oh, that's perfect, because you always reminisce in a positive way. So in many cases, it's true. We've been good partners. I'm sort of I'm kind of the catalyst. I come up with a concept, but Bobby fills in the ideas. She looks at things from a reader level more than a publisher level.
And she's so wonderful. Just to let our listeners know, the two as a couple, I enjoy the times I've spent with both
at the fish fries.
At the fish fries, love it. Right, love it. But you know, the man I'm talking to is a great idea in terms of promotion. He pulls people in. It's why I love in terms of I love to listen to, because I think the gospel is like that. You know, Jesus kind of pulls people in through the stories and through kind of the sense. But what Roy did with his magazine, he said various aspects of promotional aspects. It hide things like a needle in the haystack type of thing for the magazines.
And I came up with another wild idea while I was mowing the lawn that what if we took this, because my farm background, I knew they liked horses and so forth, and I bought this 6-horse hitch, one of the best in the country, and we ran it diagonally across the country from Maine to California.
Wow.
Ocean to ocean. We actually ran the feet of the horses in the ocean out there by Kennebunkport, very near President George Bush's home. And we did it 6 days a week. We always stopped on Sunday, rest the horses and church time and so forth.
Great.
And little by little, we worked our way. It took 16 months across the country, but it was called the Country Reminisce Hitch. It was the two magazines, the two main ones I had. And I needed sort of a cause or a mission rather than just something promotional. And it turned out it was the 50th, I think, anniversary of the first senior center in the United States. So we stopped at every senior center. We took a rural route. And, we said in advance, these aren't our horses, these are your horses, because you helped us buy them and through the magazine and so forth. It was amazing how the reaction of people to this. We had testimonies of one guy in Massachusetts said that his mother hadn't come out of the house for 2 years, but when her horses came through town, she came out to the street, and she's been coming out since. And we don't have time to go into a lot of funny stories, but we actually took one of those horses, Firestone, my favorite horse, into a senior center. She said, the director said, bring him in because it was raining. We couldn't bring the hitch near. There was no place to maneuver it. And she said, we said, do you mean the dog? Because we had, a dog along too. And she said, no, him, the horse. And I said, this horse weighs a ton. She said, whatever he does, I'll clean up. And we brought that horse into the lobby. And it was just kind of Hollywood-like. I mean, they brought people, pushed him out even in beds around there. And Firestone, we have video to prove it. Firestone, this huge horse in the middle of the lobby, and he swings his nose over into the guest book.
Wow.
You can see it in the video. We surely didn't plan that, Maybe God had something to do with that, too.
I'm sure.
But, and finally, she said, some kind come out of the rooms, bring him down the halls. And I was running ahead because I thought these people think you're hallucinating. I thought I just saw a building go by. But anyway, we were horse in the hall. And we brought them all the way there. So there were just a lot of rewarding things. But, we finally made it all the way to California.
We're going to fast forward. So suddenly you and Bobby decide it's going to be a new time in your life. You take the magazines that you started, all very successful, and all of a sudden you sell those magazines and quotes retire. The quotes. I don't ever think that you or Bobby could ever retire, but you quotes retire. But then all of a sudden, there's a few years have gone by, and all of a sudden I'm holding this magazine called Our Wisconsin. Open up the front of it, and it's there's a statement saying that Roy Reiman flunked retirement. So tell me about Our Wisconsin.
Well, I think it is one of the. Maybe I flunked some things I forgot, but but I did flunk retirement. Selling the company was really, really a difficult time. It was as difficult as putting up one of my 6 kids for adoption. Because it was a part of me. But it was just time. You have to plan a transition and so forth. And so anyway, we did sell it, and I guess it was like, for I don't know 3 5. I traveled more. I got on more boards. I played more golf. But it was just a gap. Writing and editing is what I do. It's what I enjoy doing. They say, I was just reading here about Jay Leno recently, and he said, they asked him why he stuck with this for 60-some years. And he said, well, I'm an entertainer. I like to make people laugh. Why would I want to stop doing that? And, I don't want to sit here with a little halo around my head, but, it's sort of the same thing with me. I'm a storyteller. If I play around in golf and I play pretty well, I enjoy that. And maybe my partner, if we were playing for quarters, he might enjoy it too. But it doesn't spread any further than that. But if I use that same 5 hours to turn out an article that is uplifting and brings a smile to the face, I've just spread it across 80-some thousand people instead. So It's something I simply enjoy doing, and I miss the whole creative outlet. I miss the interaction with readers. Again, I had ideas going to waste. So I finally said, why don't we just do something for Wisconsin? And the goal hasn't been, profit solely. I've got a partner, Mike Bino, who's one of my top editors, who worked with me for years, who edited Reminiscing and Birds and Blooms. So we decided to launch it, and we've been at it about a little over a year, and we have 85,000 subscribers. It's going well.
And I'll tell you, that's if you're a resident of Wisconsin, our Wisconsin should be on everybody's coffee table, or at least on everybody's table in the kitchen.
I don't want to pay for this commercial.
No, you don't have to. You don't have to. No payment for the commercial. The graphic pictures of Wisconsin pulls in with a sensitivity. There's a love for Wisconsin that is depicted in that magazine, along with the great human interest stories that are that basically are a part of it. And but it's a little different than the prior Reiman publication, because this one's got advertising in it.
Yeah, I have to keep sort of explaining or defending that, but. The 1 minute explanation is when you have a national magazine, you may need, when I began, you had to have about 200,000 subscribers to make it without ads. Now it's probably 1 million. But when you have a regional magazine like our Wisconsin and you have a population of 5.9 million, I don't think you're going to get 1 million subscribers. So we do accept some advertising, but we keep it like 20%. We're still making it bulk mostly on subscriptions.
Well, I just tell you how much I enjoy the magazine. I've gotten it as gift subscriptions for a number of my friends who also enjoy Wisconsin, and our Wisconsin. I really encourage our basically our listeners to make sure that they grab a hold of the magazine, look at it, and just celebrate this wonderful state that we're in. The other aspect is you've got a little thing that you brought to me, which is the first edition of the Directory of Wisconsin's Best Ma and Pa Restaurants.
Yeah, that's doing pretty well. Quickly, we were featuring a favorite Ma and Pa restaurant. Again, most of our stories come from readers, and so readers were nominating. This is my favorite. The Rusty Tractor, for example, by Door County, I think was one of our first. And I've heard from people say, yeah, that is a great place. So there was such a demand for that we finally decided let's put out a directory. So there are over 300 Ma and Pa small diners there with a map in the middle that helps you.
Now listen, Roy, you've got to promise to come back, because I have a whole ton of things to talk to you about, and you got to bring Bobby with you.
I think I told all the best stuff.
Bobby and Roy are Mr. and Mrs. Greendale. There's no doubt about it.
Right,
they
big supporters.
They are tremendous supporters, and you haven't lived going through Greendale unless you've gotten a tour from Roy and Bobby about it. So you'll have to promise to come back, okay?
Okay,
great.
Before we close, I do have a phone number for those of our listeners who are interested in our Wisconsin. 877-902-9760. 877-902-9760. Thank you so much, Roy, for joining us this morning and sharing your stories and your faith with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Enjoy being
Archbishop, as always, let's close with a prayer.
Sure. And since we are talking about our Wisconsin as a magazine, let us give thanks immediately as a people for the great gift of the natural beauty that is a part of our state, for living in a country that supports freedoms and liberties, and our willingness to be able to defend those freedoms. Together, let us pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. And may the blessings of Almighty God be upon you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Archbishop, and thanks to all of you for listening this morning. The Archbishop and I are back in a couple of weeks with another edition of Living Our Faith. Hope you will join us then. In the meantime, I'm Jeff Jackson, wishing you a happy weekend. See you at Mass.